Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Thanksgiving at her parents' house was always a production. Not just the food or the guest list, but the whole theatrical air that settled over everything. The performative family cheer, the careful conversations. I never quite fit in. I was the outsider who married their golden daughter, the man who paid for the mortgage but never got asked if he wanted dark or white meat. Still, I tried. Every year, I showed up early, helped carry the extra chairs in from the garage, set the table just the way her mother liked. Silverware placed precisely an inch from the edge, napkins folded into neat triangles. I brought a bottle of Pinot she once said she liked. She didn't thank me. She hadn't really thanked me for anything in a while. But I brushed it off. I told myself she was just tired, that the holidays could be stressful, that I shouldn't expect too much. Dinner started the same way it always did. Her father carving the turkey like he was performing open-heart surgery, her mother fussing over cranberry sauce arrangements like she was styling a magazine shoot. Her sister and brother-in-law bickering lightly over who was worse at carving pumpkins with the kids. Me, I just sat back, smiled when I was expected to, passed plates, and kept my wine glass filled without making a scene. Then came the moment. It started with her laughing, nothing new there. She'd had 3 glasses of wine, was basking in the glow of her sister's attention and the casual reverence her father always gave her. Someone had asked about our weekend plans, and I had said, without much thought, we might stay in. Just relax. That's when she leaned back, held her wine glass aloft, and said it. Loudly, clearly, without flinching. I'd be thankful if he knew what he was doing in bed. The table froze, just for a beat. Then the laughter started. Her sister was the first to break, laughing in that cruel, high-pitched way that always felt half-mocking, even when she was being nice. Her mother smiled tight-lipped, as if embarrassed but too amused to stop it. Even her father chuckled under his breath, eyes flicking to his turkey like it might save him from the awkwardness. Me? I sat still. I didn't glare or slam my hand down or ask her what the hell she meant. I just lifted my wine glass, took a slow sip, and smiled. It was the kind of smile you give when you see the final piece of a puzzle fall into place. The kind of smile that says, all right, now I know exactly what you are. She caught my expression, but she didn't stop. If anything, she leaned into it. I mean, come on, she said, swirling her wine like she was on a talk show. It's not like fireworks go off or anything. Honestly, it's more like lighting a soggy matchstick. More laughter. Her sister gasped theatrically, and her mother actually said, now, with a smirk that betrayed zero disapproval. I watched the scene unfold like I wasn't the one being shredded at the center of it all. That man they were laughing about. The one who didn't know what he was doing. The punchline, the failure, he didn't exist. Not outside of her narrative. He was a construct, a character she'd created to make herself seem clever and long-suffering. The actual man, the one who had covered her student loans, carried her through a mental breakdown, stood by her side when she left her job to find herself. He was invisible. The turkey had gone cold. The mashed potatoes looked untouched. I couldn't even hear the background music anymore. All I could hear was the echo of her voice, that smug, satisfied tone as she turned my most private self into entertainment. When I finally did speak, it was only to ask her father to pass the gravy. I think they were expecting something else, an explosion, maybe some pathetic attempt to defend myself. But I didn't give them that. I gave them calm. I'd always known she could be cruel in private. Cutting remarks, little jabs disguised as humor, passive-aggressive sighs when I tried to initiate anything in the bedroom. But now I knew she could be cruel in public, too. Openly. That mattered. That meant something. She had chosen to humiliate me as a joke. A performance. She wanted them to laugh at me, and they did. They saw me as less of a man now. And that told me everything I needed to know. I didn't rush. I stayed through dessert, smiled through coffee, helped clear the table, played the part one last time. But beneath the surface, something had snapped into place. Not broken. Broken things can be repaired. This was something more definitive. Like a decision being finalized. She thought she was being witty. That I'd take it, like I always had, and then crawl back into bed next to her like nothing had happened. She had no clue what I had in store. And that's what made it all so perfect. Because when the time came to ruin her holiday, it would be in a way she'd never forget. And I would still be smiling. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. She was still asleep, sprawled across the bed like she hadn't publicly gutted me the night before. Her breathing was soft, peaceful. That's what hit me the most, her serenity. You'd think someone who humiliated their partner in front of a full table of family would carry at least a trace of remorse. But not her. She slept like a woman with no consequences. I slipped out of bed quietly, the way I had done so many times before, not to avoid waking her, but because I had long ago gotten used to the fact that my presence meant little. I made coffee in silence, watching it drip slowly into the pot like it was the most important thing happening in the world. And I let my mind drift. Not forward. Backward. The dinner had opened my eyes, but now the memories came flooding in, each one lining up neatly, patiently, as if waiting their turn to confirm what I already knew. She had stopped respecting me a long time ago. There was the vacation we took last year, supposed to be a romantic getaway to reconnect. I remember booking the resort myself, choosing the place based on her Pinterest boards, arranging a private sunset cruise. She spent half the trip on her phone, giggling at texts she never let me see. She said she was tired, or just not in the mood. I thought I was being patient. There was her birthday, when I surprised her with tickets to that Broadway show she used to talk about. She opened the envelope, looked at the front of the playbill, and said, that's sweet. Just disappointed the seats weren't better. I remember laughing it off, telling myself maybe she was stressed from work. There were dozens of these moments. Hundreds, if I'm being honest. Little rejections, subtle insults, the way she always seemed to light up for other people but dimmed around me. How she used to joke with her friends that I was just another quiet guy who couldn't take initiative right in front of me. I thought I was misreading it back then, that maybe I was too sensitive. But now, after last night, I knew I wasn't imagining any of it. She hadn't slipped. She had revealed. She didn't love me. She tolerated me, used me, performed beside me when it served her image. But when she had the spotlight, she tore me down without hesitation. And the people around her, her blood, her history, they had laughed right along. No one pulled her aside. Because in their world, mocking me wasn't cruel. I checked my phone. A new text from her sister. Hey, sorry if last night got a little too playful. You know how she gets after wine. I stared at the screen for a long time. Playful. That was the word they were using. As if what she said hadn't drilled through my chest in front of 8 people. I deleted the text without replying. When she finally emerged from the bedroom, rubbing her eyes and yawning like she was the victim of a restless night, I watched her silently. She greeted me with a nonchalant morning, kissed me on the cheek as if we were still in the same story. You okay? She asked casually, pouring herself coffee. Yeah, I said, keeping my tone light. Just tired. She didn't press. Of course not. She wasn't interested in a real answer. She just needed to confirm that I hadn't made things inconvenient by caring too much. I let the silence sit between us. She scrolled through her phone, probably checking Instagram. That was when I knew what I had to do. It came to me with unsettling clarity, not a burst of rage or bitterness, but something colder. I wanted her to experience something she hadn't felt in a long time. She wouldn't see it coming. That was the beauty of it. She had spent so long underestimating me. A few weeks ago, I had received a message. An anonymous account. No name, no context. Just a screenshot and a single sentence. You deserve to know. The image showed a message thread between her and someone saved as or short for Reed, her yoga instructor. I hadn't said anything at the time. I didn't want to believe it. The messages were flirty, vague enough for denial, but intimate enough to twist my gut. The kind of messages you don't send someone unless something's already happened, or is about to. I noticed the change in her behavior, the extra yoga classes, the private sessions, the unexplained charges on our credit card from cafes near his studio. I started gathering what I had. I revisited old phone bills, went through shared accounts we hadn't cleaned up yet. I copied everything to a flash drive. Then I started building a small folder of evidence, nothing loud or incriminating enough to get messy, just enough to destroy her credibility among the people whose opinions she still craved. I went through our joint account next. Quietly. She never monitored it closely, assumed I was handling it because finances bored her. I moved my half into a separate account. Legal, above board, traceable. Then I booked a cabin up north. Nothing fancy. Isolated. Time to think, to plan, to disappear for a little while. She had already written me off as harmless. The man who didn't know what he was doing in bed. The man who bought theater tickets she didn't want. That was the version of me she had played with for years. She hadn't met this version yet. And by the time I was done, Thanksgiving would never be her favorite holiday again. It was the Wednesday after Thanksgiving when I finally pulled the trigger. The timing was deliberate, close enough to the holiday that everyone was still in that post-feast lull, scrolling social media, reliving their curated family photos, still within reach of the event that had detonated my patience. The plan had come together smoothly. That's the thing about someone who spends years mocking you behind your back. They grow complacent. They think they know what you're capable of. They mistake kindness for weakness, silence for stupidity. I created a new email account, untraceable, anonymous. I attached a small bundle of screenshots to 3 identical messages. One went to her father, one to her sister, and one to her childhood friend, the one who had been at Thanksgiving, sitting across from me when my wife humiliated me. All 3 had laughed that night. I made sure to include that memory in the subject line, from the man who couldn't light a match. Inside, I kept the message short. You laughed at me over turkey. Here's what your laughter cost you. Then the images. The flirty messages between her and Reed. Most of them innocuous if you didn't read carefully. The ones where she joked about getting her real workout in after class, or the selfies she'd sent in a sports bra with the caption, "Missing my personal hands-on trainer." I included bank statements too, small charges that wouldn't normally raise eyebrows but, lined up and timestamped, told a different story. The kicker? A screenshot of her email confirming a hotel booking. A boutique suite downtown. Same night she'd told me she was at a group dinner. I didn't include the location of the hotel. The best part of a slow burn is watching people light their own matches. I scheduled the emails to send at noon, just as she would be settling into her lunch break at the office. Then I packed. The lakeside cabin I booked was 3 hours away. A modest place, tucked against the shoreline, hidden among old pine and birch. It was quiet, still dusted with leftover snow. I arrived just as the first call started. Her name lit up my phone screen 3 times. Then her sister. Then her father. I didn't answer any of them. By the time I started a fire in the stone hearth, I was already off-grid. I left my phone on silent, screen down, resting on the wooden mantle like it had nothing left to offer me. I sat in the warmth of the flames and stared out across the white horizon. There was just quiet. And then, just after 5 p.m., the last call came. I picked it up. Her voice was trembling. Raw. Breathless. "What did you do?" she asked. I didn't say anything. "Why would you send them that?" she continued, each word catching on her throat. "You humiliated me." I smiled at the fire. "Interesting choice of words," I said calmly. "You know, I seem to remember someone saying something very similar. At a dinner table. With an audience. That's not the same, and you know it," she snapped, the heat coming back to her tone now. This is petty. You've blown everything up." I let the silence sit. Then, I gave them the truth. "You gave them a performance." She exhaled like I'd slapped her. "I was drunk. You were honest." She didn't reply right away. I could hear her pacing, heels clacking on tile. The sound of a glass clinking against something hard. "They're furious with me," she said, voice smaller now. "Dad won't talk to me. Claire called me a liar. Said she doesn't know who I am. Sounds like they're finally meeting you." I waited for her to hang up. She didn't. She stayed on the line, breathing. Then came the question I'd been expecting since the call began. "Are you coming back?" I let that one sit for a long time. "No," I said. "Not for a while. Maybe not ever." Her voice cracked. "You're serious?" I nodded, knowing she couldn't see it, but somehow hoping she could feel it. "You want to know what the worst part is?" I asked. "It's not the cheating. Not even the fact that you laughed while you described my body like I wasn't sitting right there. It's that you did it all with confidence. With ease. You didn't stumble. You were proud." "I didn't mean it like that," she whispered. "Then how did you mean it?" Silence. That was the truth she couldn't spin. "I'll be staying here for a bit," I continued. "I've transferred my half of the money. I've notified my boss. I've asked for extended leave. Don't call again unless there's a real emergency." "You're punishing me," she said. "No," I said softly. "I'm just finally giving myself a break from being your husband." I hung up. The phone buzzed again immediately, her name flashing across the screen, but I turned it off. That night, I stood outside in the cold, wrapped in a heavy coat, listening to the crack of ice on the lake. A fox darted along the edge of the trees. The air was sharp, and I felt lighter. The first snowfall hit the cabin the following morning. Thick, slow flakes blanketed the pine branches outside like the world was trying to wrap itself in silence. I stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching as the lake froze over in tiny increments. Everything was still, undisturbed, except her. By now, the ripple effect had turned tidal. I hadn't spoken to her since that last phone call, but I didn't need to. The updates came to me in subtle ways, from shared friends reaching out cautiously, from work colleagues I barely spoke to suddenly asking how I was doing, from the barely concealed curiosity behind their eyes. Her father had apparently confronted her first, called her to his house, and demanded answers. Not just about Reed, but about everything. Her comments, her contempt, the image she'd created. He wasn't looking at her as a daughter anymore. He was seeing her as a stranger who had mocked her husband in front of an entire family. And it was Claire, her sister, who delivered the next blow. Someone had forwarded her the screenshots I sent. She'd sent back a message I didn't expect. "You didn't deserve that. Not any of it." Then came the message from Reed. Somehow, he had found the new email I'd used. His subject line read only, "You could have just come to me." Cowards always try to make you feel guilty for how they got caught. Like exposure is worse than betrayal. According to one mutual friend, Reed had ghosted her the day after the emails went out, canceled their private sessions, stopped liking her posts, blocked her number. Just like that, he vanished. I imagine he didn't expect his gym clients to be shown text messages about him, working her glutes in bed. Funny how these things spiral. Her curated life cracked like glass. What little image she'd built, the wife who married the sweet, quiet provider while still keeping her spark, gone. The edgy, independent woman who made risque jokes about her boring husband in front of wineglass audiences, that turned sour when the audience realized they'd been laughing at a lie. She posted something that weekend, a carefully filtered photo of her walking in the park alone. The caption read, "Taking time to rediscover what matters. Grateful for growth." I almost laughed. That's what she was doing now, retooling her persona, trying to spin pain into self-discovery like it was all part of some intentional journey. But I knew the truth. She wanted a reset, a do-over. She wanted to skip the part where she admitted to herself that she'd destroyed her own life with a smirk. So it didn't surprise me when she showed up. 3 days after the first snowfall, just after dusk, I heard the tires crunching on gravel before I saw her headlights. I stood by the window and watched as she stepped out of the car, arms wrapped around herself, long coat drawn tight. She didn't look like the woman who'd mocked me over mashed potatoes. She looked like someone who finally realized her stage was empty. She knocked once, then twice. "Please," she said, voice muffled through the wood. "Just talk to me." I waited. Then, slowly, turned the knob. She stepped inside like the warmth might burn her. The fire was still going. I hadn't said a word. "You left," she said, her eyes searching mine. "You really left." I didn't ask if she wanted to sit. "I thought you'd just be angry for a few days. That you'd cool off. Come home." "You thought wrong," I said flatly. She flinched. "You didn't answer my messages. Or my calls. You." She paused, voice catching. "You humiliated me." That word again. I stepped closer, not aggressively, just enough to make her listen. "You humiliated yourself," I said. "I just made sure no one missed it this time." Her eyes filled then, not with rage but regret. Real or performative, I couldn't tell. Maybe it didn't matter. "I messed up," she said, voice breaking. "I was drunk and stupid. I knew things were wrong between us. I didn't know how to fix them." I lashed out. "You didn't lash out," I replied. "You made a choice. A performance. One you've been rehearsing for years. You only regret it now because the curtain fell and no one clapped." Tears spilled over. She didn't try to wipe them. "I lost everything," she whispered. "No," I corrected her. "You gave it away." She looked around the cabin then, at the warmth of the room, the untouched mug on the mantel, the bed in the corner still neatly made. "You found peace here?" "I found myself," I said simply. She moved toward me then, slowly, reaching for my hand. For a second, we stood like that, silent, still, the snow building outside like the world was holding its breath. And then I pulled my hand back. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "You can't. We've been through too much." I nodded. "Exactly. We've been through too much. And only one of us came out honest." She started to say something else. I didn't let her. "You came here for closure," I said gently. "Now you have it." She didn't argue. Maybe because she knew it was the first time in our marriage I truly meant everything I said. She turned, slowly, shoulders slumping as she reached the door. Outside, the cold met her like a punishment. I didn't follow. I let the door close behind her. And I went back to the fire. I stayed at the cabin for another week after she left. The days passed slowly, deliberately, each one a little quieter than the last. I woke early, made coffee with the same methodical rhythm every morning, and let the silence of the woods reset my internal clock. No phone, no news, no emails, just the low crackle of the fire and the occasional rustle of animals outside. And still, no part of me missed her. That surprised me. I had expected to feel something by now. A pang, a lingering ache. But nothing came. Not guilt, not longing, just peace. Thick, solid, and immovable. Maybe it was because the person I left wasn't the same one I married. I thought back to the early days, before the yawns during conversations, before the withering looks when I tried to reach for her in bed. Back when a shared meal meant something, when she used to laugh with me instead of at me. There had been joy once. I wasn't blind to that. I just wasn't going to let those fragments trick me into thinking they still existed. Because what mattered wasn't how we started. It was how she chose to end it. And no matter how many tears she shed, no matter how many cryptic Instagram captions she posted about rebirth and healing, the truth stayed the same. She mocked her husband in front of a table full of people, laughing while she reduced me to a caricature of incompetence. And when the curtain came down, she realized too late that I had the final word. That word was enough. I drove back to the city on the second Sunday of December. The roads were icy, but the sky was clear. My apartment, yes, mine now, was waiting. A modest one-bedroom I had signed a lease on just before leaving. I had moved a few things in before the holiday, anticipating the need for separation even before I knew how far it would go. The key slid into the lock like it had always belonged there. It felt good to start over somewhere she had never touched. No scent of her shampoo in the bathroom. No framed wedding photo collecting dust on a shelf. Just clean space. She sent another text 2 days later. Just 5 words. Do you really hate me? I didn't respond. Because I didn't need anything from her anymore. Not answers. Not apologies. Not closure. She had tried to reclaim the narrative. Spun it into a self-pity arc on social media. Her feed turned into a carousel of growth updates and quotes about resilience. The people who hadn't seen what happened bought it. A few even commented how strong she was. But the ones who mattered? They knew. Her father didn't speak to her for Christmas. Claire didn't invite her to the family New Year's party. And Reed? Rumor had it he switched gyms. Someone claimed he was dating a new instructor already. Eventually, the messages stopped. I suppose she realized I meant it when I walked away. What stuck with me most wasn't the betrayal. Not the affair. Not even the dinner table humiliation. It was the fact that when she saw me after the damage was done, when she stood in the doorway of that cabin, she still believed her tears would buy her redemption. That after everything, I'd fall back into the role she'd carved for me. The dependable fool. She never imagined I'd walk away from the table and take the meal with me. And now, every Thanksgiving that rolls around, she'll remember. As for me, I've stopped counting losses. I only count what's mine. Peace. Independence. Self-worth. Things no one can laugh away. I still set the table for 2 sometimes. Out of habit, maybe. But I don't fill the other seat with regret. I fill it with memory. Of the man I became the moment I decided I was finished being the fool in someone else's comedy. I drink to that now. And the wine tastes better when the toast is for yourself.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.